welcome to our session on migrating and modernizing enterprise workloads. Really excited to be here in person. It's been a while. Good to see everybody here in person as well. My name is Sean Lewis. I lead our Microsoft workloads go-to-market at AWS. And we're going to do a sort of a tag team presentation today. Everett and I are going to walk you through how we're helping customers migrate workloads into AWS, how those customers are then optimizing and modernizing those workloads as well. I've been with Amazon for about 7.5 years, and my team works with customers to help them understand how these workloads run best in AWS, and we help them through this entire journey. Everett?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, my name is Everett Olivan, and I lead the ERP on AWS sales team for North and South America. Been with the company about 2 years and have spent many years both on the SAP side as well as the Oracle side. And also, similarly, very excited to actually be back in person, even to be maskless. It's really great to see people and to interact on a human level beyond just being on a screen. So thank you all so much for coming and spending some time with us today. I'm going to cover the agenda. As you can see, our agenda is divided into 3 sections. In the first section, Sean and I will discuss the value of migrating and modernizing on AWS. And by migrating, we largely mean lifting and shifting, moving your assets from where they are today, be it in a colo or on-premise, and moving them to the cloud. And then modernizing, being taking that migrated instance or workload and actually enabling cloud-enabled services, microservices, containers, IoT, AI, ML, and enhancing those applications or workloads with native services that take advantage of cloud architectures. So we'll talk about that first and really thinking and focusing about the business value associated with making moves like that. Second of all, we'll talk about enterprise workloads and moving specifically enterprise workloads to AWS. And by enterprise workloads, we mean both the business applications like an SAP or an Oracle ERP, be it Enterprise Business Suite, whether that's PeopleSoft or JD Edwards, or perhaps it's a technology platform like Microsoft or VMware. Finally, we'll leave you with some thoughts about how to get started on your journey, either to start the migration process or to accelerate your journey. And we'll give you some ideas about where you can go and how we can help enable you. So whether you are representing the business as a line of business owner, as a CFO, as a head of supply chain or procurement, or whether you're a technology leader, a cloud architect, a CTO, a Chief Security and Information Officer, we believe that you will get value out of the session today, and we're excited to get started.
Thanks, Everett. So we want to kick off and really talk about the acceleration around cloud transformation, adoption of cloud, and brought some stats in here from a couple of different third-party analysts and reports to really provide some context here on what we're seeing in the industry as we work with customers. The first is more customers are looking to migrate workloads to the cloud than ever before, right? This is a report from a company called Flexera, their 2022 State of the Cloud report, where they dug into analysis with customers on why is that happening, right? And we see customers accelerating their digital transformation. We see customers reviewing their opportunities to optimize cost, to become more agile, more flexible, migrate workloads into the cloud. You'll see this whole kind of transformation story today where we talk about as customers move in, they're right-sizing, they're optimizing, and then they're leveraging cloud-native services as they transform some of these applications. We're seeing more and more of that, right, being driven by not only cost, but also the need to be agile and move more quickly to deliver new services for their customers. We also saw a big acceleration during COVID. Many customers evaluated their core business model, some of their applications that were supporting that business, and said, is now the time to really maybe move faster on some of these initiatives or projects to take advantage of this, to become not only more optimized on cost, but also provide more capabilities. The second stat here is around customers that are already in the cloud, right? So they've migrated workloads in, and they're digging deeper on cost, and they're really looking at the ROI. You'll see some different ROI stats that we'll talk about today around running some of these different workloads in AWS and what customers are seeing as they go through that journey. And we're seeing a real increased focus from customers on saying, how can I start to figure out how to be more efficient with these existing workloads that I already have? So when we think about AWS, right, it's kind of a very peculiar culture here. When we work with our customers, we've lowered our prices at AWS 111 times since we launched AWS. And we have services like Trusted Advisor, where we proactively give customers guidance on ways to optimize and lower their costs. And we're hearing customers want to do more with that, right? And part of that is getting more efficient with what I've already got with my existing app. And part of that is also help me find additional ways to maybe move off of some of these legacy old guard enterprise workloads and into some cloud native services to lower costs as well. And then the third comes from McKinsey, and this is around faster time to market. So what McKinsey was studying here was when customers are migrating workloads into the cloud and they're building and running their environment in a cloud, they can get to market faster to their customers versus an on-premises competitor, right? And a lot of that has to do with the agility, the elasticity, the ability to spin up resources anywhere, anytime they need them in different availability zones, different regions to support their different traffic patterns or new customer adoption, bringing services to new places faster by leveraging cloud infrastructure.
Thanks, Sean. So as companies look at making this decision about staying on-prem or moving to the cloud, they look at these 6 factors, and really the question for each company is, in these areas of security and compliance and performance and data analytics, skills of people and customer experience with integration, is there differentiation for them in the marketplace? Do these capabilities create competitive advantage? And if they don't, then companies are analyzing why they're doing them the way they are today and whether there's a better way to optimize. For example, in security and compliance, companies are spending thousands of hours trying to stay compliant with security regulations, with patching, with firewalls, with security updates. And what customers who are moving to AWS have found is that at a lower cost, with lower effort, they can get substantially higher security SLAs and performance out of that capability. Similarly, in data analytics, every company can tell you that having access to the right information at the right time leads to better decision-making and higher profitability. But most companies today find their data is trapped in silos, systems and old data warehouses not talking to each other. Whereas by moving to the cloud and leveraging capabilities like Redshift and Athena and S3 storage and Glue, we can actually create, and customers can create for themselves, data lakes that bring together disparate sets of data to provide new, powerful insights into running their organizations. And similarly, things like customer experience, the ability to flex your capability and handle large bursts of demand from the market, and really to innovate on the customer experience requires flexibility, nimbleness, and the ability to scale. We feel that, and our customers agree, that the ability to do this in AWS really opens up their capabilities in terms of faster innovation, faster time to market, and ability to capture more market share. Just to bring that home a little bit, our customers on average, when they move from an on-prem or colo facility to the cloud, see around 30–31% savings. And as Sean mentioned, that savings is the initial savings of not having to buy and depreciate hardware and maintain all that hardware. But here at AWS, we view cost savings as an ongoing, continuous improvement exercise. As Sean mentioned, we often will go into customers and say, we are looking at your consumption, and by making these changes, you can actually spend less with us. And the first time we do that, companies wonder why on earth we would ever do that, right? But we're obsessed with making sure that customers get value out of the cloud, not just moving to AWS, but dropping out the costs time and time again, whether that's through discounts to our pricing and price drops, or whether that's creating new environments that are more efficient for users. 43% fewer security incidents. This goes back to the point I was making about security being more efficient and effective on AWS. There are a number of US security agencies that use our cloud, so if it's secure enough for the federal agencies that use us, we hopefully and believe it will be secure enough for you. Boosting staff productivity, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but there's a lot of run and maintain when you're managing your own hardware and infrastructure. And as a result of that, keep the lights on mentality with your IT resources, it really hinders the ability to innovate and deliver new experiences for your customers and for your business users. Companies report being able to move as much as 3 times faster in delivering new features to the market.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits that we see and hear from customers as they both migrate these workloads into AWS and start to modernize them. So of course, as customers are migrating, they're looking at freeing up resources and getting more efficient, right? We talk to many customers who are in an expensive co-location lease, and they're looking at that and saying, how can I make sure that when that lease expiration comes up, I can terminate it and I can be in the cloud? We have customers that own data centers, and they're looking to get out of those data centers. Sometimes that's an opportunistic thing where they're saying, hey, I have an opportunity to maybe sell this data center, right? It's some real estate I can put on the market. Other time there's a compelling event for our customers where they say, hey, I've been told from a budgetary financial standpoint that we need to consolidate from 12 data centers to 3 in the next 18 to 24 months. Can you help us do it? So we're helping customers put together that plan. We have our migration professional services team. We have a great partner ecosystem. We have a migration competency with our partners where they're able to help customers paint that picture of what that looks like, the time frame that they want to migrate, and then work backwards to help get these workloads in. And our philosophy at AWS is we want to be the best place for you to run all of these workloads, right? So Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, Linux, right? Cloud native workloads. As we dig in there with customers on their migration path, sometimes customers, and you'll see this a little bit when we talk about what we call the 7 Rs, will look at prioritization and where they want to reprioritize some of those different workloads. So I think it's really important to understand all these workloads have a home in AWS. We've done it before many times with customers. As Andy, our CEO, says, there's no compression algorithm for experience, and we have a ton of experience doing this. As customers are migrating into the cloud, they're looking at really like transforming the way that they're leveraging their compute and storage and other resources. And part of that is pay as you go and only paying for what you use to be more efficient in allocating those resources. So in the case of Microsoft workloads, for example, we have what's called a license included option where customers can pay for Windows Server, SQL Server by the hour if they would like to, right? They can also commit with a reserved instance, or they can bring licenses into AWS infrastructure as well. So we give customers those different choices and more flexibility around the licensing model. Sometimes it makes sense to only spin up a big SQL cluster for an hour a week to run a really big batch processing job and then spin it back down as opposed to leaving it running 24/7. Sometimes these licenses are very expensive, and customers are evaluating these different options and using the flexibility that they have in the cloud. The scalability and the security of the infrastructure in AWS is also very important to understand, right? Infrastructure on demand is a real thing. So customers are bursting up and then bursting back down, again, based on what their usage patterns and requirements are, but they have that capability to leverage. And we have some great innovations in the AWS infrastructure, things like EC2 Spot. If you're not familiar with that, it's the ability for you to take advantage of unused or unallocated compute instances in different AWS regions and availability zones at a lower cost than what actually is being offered per hour with an interrupt, right? So if you're running a high performance computing workload or a batch processing job that can be interrupted and then resumed, it's a great opportunity to leverage more economical compute and the scale of AWS. Once your data is in the cloud, right, there are so many options that are available to you where you can take advantage of different analytics capabilities, right? We have Redshift, our parallel data warehouse. We have our different analytics services. We have BI and other tooling that's available for customers to take advantage of and really start to slice and analyze that data once it's living in AWS. And the ability to do all that in one place is consistently something that our customers tell us is very valuable. The pace of innovation is important to understand as well. I mean, we have over 200 services in the AWS portfolio, many different opportunities for customers to take advantage of these different services in different regions all around the world to be able to continue to adopt the pace of innovation that AWS is providing for them and continue to evolve their infrastructure and build new things for their customers. And then finally, we see a lot of training and skill upskilling opportunities for folks, right? As we talk to customers about their migration and their modernization journey, one of these big benefits is the ability to upskill folks and make sure that they have the opportunity to learn and be able to consume these different AWS services and operate them in a self-sufficient way. We also have great managed offerings, both from partners and then AWS. We have our AMS, AWS Managed Services offerings. So a lot of flexibility there for customers, but training, knowledge, certification, so important and a key element to the migration and modernization journey.
Thanks, Sean. A lot of great benefits there, but how do we actually quantify the business value of some of those? Well, while we help our customers create business cases to help justify those migrations to the cloud, there are a couple of key buckets that we tend to find value and our customers tend to find value in. The first is, as we mentioned before, reduction in TCO, right? And so that's incredibly useful and powerful, but in and of itself, that's just fine. Question is, on top of saving money, what else can you get in terms of business value? And we have seen and documented with our clients, as we talked about that staff productivity, by developing, for example, a DevOps delivery model, you could dramatically increase the productivity in developing apps and operating sites. One of our customers, Sage, eliminated 500 hours of server configuration time alone per year. That's just configuring servers, freeing up their team to work on innovation rather than keeping the lights on. From an operations resilience perspective, this is about unplanned downtime, right? If a customer has their systems of record down for an hour, it could cost them literally millions of dollars per hour in sales orders or lost revenue, lost clients that may never come back. And so the ability to have the ability to have high resilience, high availability, disaster recovery, leveraging AWS's structural approach to the cloud. And if you don't know about that, we'd encourage you to learn about what regions are. Regions are comprised of availability zones. Availability zones are comprised of one or more data centers. And so having a structure of that nature allows organizations to deliver higher operational resilience than they can today in many cases. Expedia was a great example of that. They used our approach to AZs and regions to create a robust disaster recovery environment for their business. And then lastly, around business agility, creating landscapes in minutes rather than days or weeks allows companies to experiment more, to test and iterate on new business models, and respond faster to changing market conditions. In the case of Intuit, their IT organization was able to build out and deploy environments 5 times faster than they were able to do when they were working on premise. So this increased business agility allows companies to take market share, to grow, to expand, and to try new and innovative approaches to business.
Great overview on the business value there, Everett. Thank you. So just double clicking a little bit, right? I mean, we talked about a couple of kind of key elements here, the benefits around modernization. How do we capture that around innovation and agility in particular, right? To help customers go faster, to continue to innovate and leverage AWS as a strategic differentiator in their business. So there are a couple of reasons that we kind of tie this back in with customers. We hear a lot of this feedback around innovation and agility. The first is the improvement of our availability, our security, and our performance, right, that we can provide to customers when they're building and managing and operating these workloads. As they modernize and they're leveraging cloud-native capabilities, they're breaking some of these applications up from monoliths into microservices. They're taking advantage of services like Elasticsearch or whatever it might be in the AWS portfolio. We see customers really looking at it and saying, like, how do I hit my SLAs? How do I continue to deliver better and better performance for my end customers and leverage the cloud at scale? So when we have customers take advantage of modernized capabilities within AWS, like a cloud-native workload, sometimes that managed offering allows them to provide higher uptime, better performance, less manual IT operation and engagement that translates into a better customer experience, right? So we think about these existing applications that are being migrated and then moved into AWS, that's really only the first step of the journey, which you'll see in a little bit here. As we look at how we can continue to add value into those line of business applications or those custom applications, right? They could be commercial off the shelf. They could be something that's custom written and developed. We see customers saying, okay, I'm going to keep the application the way that it is, but I want to tie some of these other AWS services into how it operates so that I can take advantage of that scale, that managed capability, the lower cost of maybe providing some of those additional components that thread into the app instead of continuing to build it and run it and operate it on my own. And then I talked about this a little bit around microservices, but we're seeing more and more customers evaluating their application structure and the way that the app is designed and saying, these monoliths are sort of a single point of failure, right? We don't really understand how it operates as completely as we should. We're worried about what happens if it tips over. We're worried about the availability, the resiliency, disaster recovery, all these things. So we're seeing more and more customers as they're putting together their modernization strategy really have a focus on how can I break these things up, make these loosely coupled parts of the architecture where I can architect and plan for failure instead of worrying if this monolith is going to tip over and fail. Now we're going to dive deeper into some of the specific enterprise workloads that we are helping customers operate in AWS. So I'm going to start with Windows workloads, the Microsoft stack running on AWS. So as I mentioned, no compression algorithm for experience definitely translates here. We have been running Windows-based workloads in AWS for 14 years. We have hundreds of thousands of customers doing very interesting things with the Microsoft stack in AWS. Customers running Windows Server and SQL Server and SharePoint and Dynamics and Exchange and customized apps, line of business apps, ISV applications that are commercial off-the-shelf software. If you can think of it, it's running in the Microsoft stack. It's probably running in AWS. We have customers running the very latest Windows operating system, Windows Server 2022. We have customers running Windows Server 2003, everywhere in between. So that Microsoft stack is a great price performance. It's a great also pace of innovation option for customers to run in AWS. So last year alone, we had 50 new launches to support the Microsoft ecosystem running in AWS. And that could be for .NET developers, right? Taking advantage of .NET 6, which is now available in AWS. It could be writing Lambda functions, which is our serverless compute capability, leveraging .NET Core, right? So if they're .NET developers, they understand .NET, they can leverage .NET Core there to build some application infrastructure with Lambda in a serverless model. We also have a really big ecosystem of partners, right? Over 11,000 partners that are innovating in AWS and bringing different components into the marketplace. Professional services partners with competencies. We have a Microsoft Workloads competency where we're helping customers migrate, optimize, modernize, but also build new things leveraging the Microsoft stack in AWS. And you can see there's some interesting data here from IDC that shows a 442% projected 5-year ROI as customers are migrating these workloads in, and some great quotes from IDC there around operational efficiency improving, the flexibility of how those workloads are running. Think back to what I was talking about regarding licensing, right? The flexibility of bringing your own licensing coupled with leveraging license included to only pay for what you use. And we have a quote here from a customer up here in the Bay Area, Pinterest, talking about just the value of bringing all these different AWS services together, right? Whether it's Windows, whether it's Linux, whether it's a cloud-native serverless type of an architecture, managing it, running it, operating it all together in one place provides a tremendous amount of value. Next, I'm going to talk about VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is a 5-year partnership we entered into with VMware 5 years ago to build out joint offerings for customers that are leveraging VMware and want to migrate those workloads into public cloud. So we have a really strong pace of innovation, a strong engineering connection, a strong go-to-market with our teams to help our customers understand the path and the entry point into AWS for some of these workloads that are going to be leveraging VMware. VMware is a strategic part of many of our customers' IT infrastructure and environment. And we see customers taking advantage of the VMware tooling, the reporting, the management, the orchestration, all the great capabilities of the VMware platform, but they also want to leverage the public cloud and the elasticity and the capabilities that come in with AWS. So we have support for VMware Cloud in 18 regions across 53 availability zones, and we have many customers ranging from public sector and large global customers to small, medium business and everywhere in between taking advantage of VMware Cloud on AWS. So you can see there's some really interesting numbers here from IDC around reduction in cost, right? Reducing IT infrastructure costs by 40% by leveraging VMware Cloud, reducing TCO by 43%, and then again, a very impressive ROI of 479% over 5 years by leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS. We have a great quote from one of our customers, William Hill, who's an online sports betting company. And they're taking advantage of VMware Cloud for a couple of things, right? Part of this is infrastructure and the pace of being able to migrate some of these workloads into the public cloud. And also an interesting component of their story to me is about the upskilling and the training that we talked about a little bit before, right? So they have some folks that are building and innovating, creating new things in cloud native, but then they also have folks that are managing and maintaining the infrastructure that resides in VMware at the time on premises. How do they blend that and move quickly at the same time, take advantage of those different skill sets? VMware Cloud gave them the ability to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Everett to talk about SAP.
Thanks, Sean. So SAP workloads on AWS. First of all, SAP and AWS have been working on moving SAP workloads to AWS into the public cloud for almost 16 years now. We were the first company to partner with SAP with their HANA Enterprise Cloud and move that and host that there. And we have continued to lead the way, setting up benchmarking standards between SAP and AWS that the rest of the market uses to compare capabilities and performance. We have over 5,000 customers running SAP workloads on AWS today with significant ROI benefits to them. And we have an incredibly rich and robust collection of competency partners who can help companies move their SAP assets to AWS. Moderna is, without a doubt, my favorite story. Moderna started working with AWS 10 years ago, long before COVID was a thing. Back then, they were a preclinical startup, and they had a stated goal of building a digitally native business in the cloud, leveraging AWS as their cloud provider. This involves the entire life cycle, from designing new messenger-based RNA drugs in their drug design studio, which runs on AWS, all the way through the manufacturing of vaccines orchestrated by their fully upgraded SAP ERP system running with high availability in AWS. As a result of their ability to scale their environments across their value chain, Moderna was able to develop a vaccine for COVID just 42 days after the sequence of the virus was published to the world, and within 11 months had received FDA approval to ship their vaccine to the world. At the time, they were able to create 100 million doses because the supply chain they had built and established in the cloud, all the way through the IoT devices and the manufacturing execution systems on the shop floor, were designed to scale. And I think everybody now has global recognition of the Moderna name and brand, and they've become a huge biotechnical company in the marketplace. So really a fantastic story, leveraging high-performance computing, the spot instances that Sean mentioned, and a full panoply of AWS services across the entire value chain of creating new vaccines. If anybody has a moment, I highly encourage you to go to YouTube, type in Moderna and Marcelo, their chief digital officer. You can see a 6.5-minute video that will just knock your socks off about the potential of using AWS to innovate and drive competitive differentiation in the marketplace. And then lastly, ISG recognized AWS for the 4th year in a row as the leader in HANA enterprise workloads specific to SAP. ISG focuses on SAP as a competency and has, for the 4th year, determined that AWS has unparalleled capability when it comes to managing those workloads. On the Oracle side, the story is pretty similar. We've been working on running Oracle workloads for over a decade. We have been working on moving those workloads to the cloud for longer than Oracle itself has. We have hundreds of thousands of Oracle databases running on our cloud today, and we have hundreds of partner-led migrations. Here we're talking about moving Enterprise Business Suite or e-Business Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, Hyperion, the core business applications, in addition to just the database side of the Oracle house. You can see the quote here in the middle from Korean Air, maximizing agility and ability to embrace new challenges. Korean Air was growing frustrated with their supplier and wanted to make a change. And so because they had had a great working relationship with AWS, they decided to move their entire e-business suite portfolio from on-premise to AWS. And based on that successful project, they're now in works with us to move other substantial portions of their IT infrastructure to AWS. As you can see on the right, Gartner talking about 47% of organizations plan to move the majority of their ERP workloads to the cloud within the next 5 years. I see that every day, right? Companies are not interested in having it run on site. They're not interested in having it being isolated in an expensive colo. And 85% of customers surveyed by us say that using data in core ERP and back office systems will help reinvent the experience that a company provides. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So really the opportunity to take those big assets, SAP assets, Oracle assets, put them in the cloud, drive cost out of the equation and increase agility is really where we're focused as a team. I'll touch on one customer reference and then Sean, I'll turn it back over to you. Phillips 66 is headquartered in Houston, Texas with over 14,000 employees. They're a major energy company both on the petroleum side as well as natural gas. Phillips 66 sought to reduce the customizations in their ERP environment, which was SAP, by adopting standard SAP industry practices, cleaning the core of their ERP environment, and moving the required customizations they needed into AWS native services. And they worked with AWS's professional services team, and here AWS has a professional services team dedicated to SAP, deep expertise in SAP. On average, our consultants, I think, have over 20 years of SAP experience. So working with our professional services team, they were able to not only move to AWS, but also upgrade to S/4HANA and move their global trade systems as well as their governance, risk, and compliance landscapes to AWS successfully and on time.
Yeah, great story. We have so many great customer stories and references. Is one of the things I really enjoy about being an Amazonian is we work very closely with our customers to earn their trust, and we love being able to talk jointly about the different things that we're working on together. And there's so many good stories here. We only have limited time, so we can't touch on all of them, but you see some of these great logos and brands, and you see we have these segmented in different groups. But there is kind of a blended better together story here. So for example, while we have customers like McDonald's and Symantec running really interesting things, the Microsoft stack running in AWS, and you see like GfK, as a VMware customer. The one that I'm going to touch on a little bit is PennyMac, because you see there's a blended story there, and it kind of aligns with the William Hill story I was telling earlier. IDC estimates 95% of enterprise companies have VMware in their on-premises infrastructure, and 70% of that application stack is running on top of Windows. So there's a great opportunity for customers as they're migrating out of their data centers and colos into AWS to build on top of these things iteratively and take advantage of these different services. So one of the things that's interesting that PennyMac did was they took their virtual desktop VDI infrastructure to provide end user computing services to their employees and move that into VMware Cloud on AWS. So really kind of blending the best of both there to take advantage of the scalable elasticity of the infrastructure with AWS, with VMware Cloud running Windows-based apps for end user computing.
Understanding and planning migrations is the beginning of any successful business transformation for enterprise workloads, and AWS has developed a proven phased approach as well as tools and services that can drive immediate scalability and cost benefit savings. Usually our migration plans consist of an assessment phase. And in the assessment phase, we build a business case, and we help you to build that, as well as performing a cloud readiness assessment. This touches on personnel and their skilling, as well as the existing environment. Once we've completed the assessment phase, we move into a migration readiness and planning phase. This is where we design the AWS architecture, the to-be state, as well as the migration plan. And at the same time, we mobilize the business to prepare for the migration. Next, we move to the migration phase where we actually migrate the workloads to AWS. And then lastly, there's an operations and optimization phase where we optimize the cloud operating model to deliver on business benefits. I'm very excited to announce today that we are, as of today, making generally available a new functionality within our Migration Hub, which helps orchestrate all of those activities, called the Migration Hub Orchestrator. And here, launched today, it accelerates and simplifies migrations by providing pre-configured workflows, templates, automation, all designed in the central pane of glass to help companies move through those 4 stages of their migration to the cloud. And there's some exciting new capabilities within the SAP-specific NetWeaver stack to help move HANA databases as well, and really orchestrate the migration, readiness, replication, testing, and cut over for AWS. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, which is brand new, I highly encourage you to go take a look at that, which we've announced today.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the different strategies here for migrating and modernizing workloads. And earlier you heard me mention the 7 R's. Here's a breakdown of what those different R's are, and where we've actually mapped this back to where we've seen customers see ROI by undertaking some of these different parts of the process. So the first is rehost, which is pretty straightforward, right? You're taking an app, piece of infrastructure that's running in a data center or colo and migrating it into AWS. So you're seeing the benefits there on reducing cost, right? I mean, getting out of the physical infrastructure, the data center, the hardware, the power, the cooling, all that stuff, and taking advantage of AWS, probably EC2, right? And then rehost plus is kind of the next step there where we see customers using that rehost motion to upgrade their infrastructure to newer versions. So an example would be, hey, we have some end of support Windows Server 2003 or 2008 on-premises instances we want to upgrade while we're making that rehost move and make sure that the infrastructure runs great with the new version of the operating system as an example. The next is relocate. So as I mentioned, we have many customers that are leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS. They're looking to maybe move some of those apps into their shared VMC infrastructure that's running in AWS. Higher density, better efficiency, leveraging the compute and storage that's provided to them in AWS with VMware Cloud to continue to take advantage of the efficiency and capability there. Then we start to get into more of the evolution of the workload in the instance, right? So once it's in AWS, it's running and operating, how can we optimize and make it more efficient? A big part of that, you see 20% of the return is around what we call replatforming. And replatforming could be a couple of things. It could be, hey, I'm gonna take this workload that was running on Windows and I'm gonna move it to Linux. I'm going to containerize this app. I'm going to take the database and I'm gonna move it from something that I operate on my own to a managed database. It could be, I wanna take the RDBMS version that I'm running, Oracle, SQL Server, et cetera, and move it to maybe a cloud native database like Aurora, for example. So we have something called the Database Migration Service that's offered to our customers at AWS where you can make that conversion happen. We've migrated 625,000 databases since we launched DMS to help customers take advantage of the ability to do that. And customers do it for many reasons, right? Performance, cost, ability to leverage the scale of cloud native services like Aurora in AWS. Refactoring really talks about looking at the app and saying like, what does the architecture look like? Is this the right type of architecture for the app going forward? Should I look at some of the fundamental principles, not just maybe the database stack, but the way the app is actually built and architected? Is it something that I could break down into the microservices that I mentioned earlier instead of the monolith. SaaS, like the repurchase capability, is something that we see some customers looking at with their ISV capabilities that they're leveraging within their environment. They might be partnered with somebody and they say, hey, we're consuming that as an app that we're running today. Do you have a SaaS offering that's maybe a little bit more flexible, provides faster pace of innovation, something that I can offload, right? If it's not something that's core to my business that I don't want to run and operate, could I subscribe to it as a SaaS offering? The retain piece is workloads that you may keep on premises for a little while. You may kind of look at the prioritization and say, it's just not really critical that we move that to the cloud just yet. That number is actually shrinking as more customers are putting together their migration strategy. In my experience, we're seeing customers that are looking at that and saying, I'm gonna kind of tie retain and retire together, which means if I don't need the workload to move to the cloud, do I really need it at all? And there's a really fun story of the customer I worked with, a pretty big technology company, and they had grown via M&A, and they were a collection of a lot of different companies. And as they were doing this assessment of the environment and what it looked like, they actually identified almost 80% of their infrastructure from some of these acquired companies that they didn't need anymore, right? They were duplicative processes, they were apps or workloads that had been kind of subsumed into the broader global brand, and that function was being served elsewhere. So this is a great opportunity for them to retire as they were evaluating what they wanted to retain and kind of prioritize for their migration. So when we talk about this whole migration and modernization story and the path here, there's a real key underlying driver around cost optimization and cost savings. And that's what I'm gonna dive into with you here around an offering from AWS called the Optimization and Licensing Assessment, or OLA. This is a free offering that we provide to customers where we provide an analysis of what their environment looks like, usually on premises, sometimes in another cloud, could even be in AWS, and then give some suggestions on ways that they can right size, right? So oftentimes we see customers have built for the high watermark based on what their highest level of peak utilization is. So think about like a e-commerce company, for example, right, that might build for the high watermark between November and January every year. And then the traffic drops back down in January, but they've still built for that high watermark. We see a lot of opportunities for customers to optimize and right-size their compute, their storage, and most impactfully from a cost standpoint, their licensing, right? So when you're licensing these enterprise workloads and you're paying by physical CPU, by core, by CPU thread sometimes, right? There's a great opportunity there to say, what are we really using and what do we really need and what can we put back on the shelf to reallocate for future projects so you don't have to repurchase those licenses? Or if it's a subscription model for the licenses, maybe they can drop the subscription and be done with it, right? So you see some of the different sort of workloads that we come across here during the optimization and licensing assessment. Could be Oracle databases, SQL Server, could be Windows Server, right? VMware, Linux instances are in scope as well. We're really looking at the OS, the infrastructure, and the overall environment. And we do that with agents, right? We have a great partner ecosystem that helps us deliver the OLAs to gather that data. The more data you have, the more insight you have on how those workloads are actually performing day over day, week over week, different times of the day, right? There could be different spikiness that you want to account for. We also have the ability to ingest flat files or exports from different types of tools and then be able to provide OLA visibility and analysis. But one of the things that we've found that's really interesting around OLA is we look at customers' costs and where their money is going and where they're budgeting as it relates to running these workloads. And we look at the cost of compute, the cost of storage, the cost of networking, and then the licensing cost. And if you look at that on a pie chart, the licensing piece is a big chunk of what the customers are actually spending on, right? So when we can help them get more efficient and reallocate and reprioritize those licenses, they see tremendous cost savings. And then also there's other savings in some of the other areas that I mentioned as well. So if you look at how this OLA is kind of scoped, right, you see the cost slope dropping down here as we're helping customers go through the OLA process, starting from really an on-premises environment to what we call like an unoptimized lift and shift, where they've migrated workloads in, and then that's, the OLA process is providing that recommendation and that readout to say, here are some different ways that you can continue to save money. This is not meant to be just a point in time thing. We see customers coming back to us on a regular basis for sort of like a checkup, right? It's been 6 months, it's been 12 months, we've taken a lot of these optimization recommendations. How can we get another baseline and review to find additional ways to reduce costs? So the OLA is a great way to do that. And then on modernization, right, is kind of the opposite, where we see the pace of innovation increasing, right, as the cost of compute drops down. So we're seeing customers take advantage of cloud native capabilities as they're modernizing, right, and we see this kind of maturity curve coming up here around automation and offloading some of those operational activities. Again, if it's not core to your business, do you really want to run and operate it? The monoliths being broken down into microservices, customers leveraging the DevOps model and automating their CI/CD pipeline, for example. That pace of innovation increases as the cost of compute drops down when you see customers moving from, say, compute that's running all the time to maybe elastic compute to breaking things down into containers, and then maybe even like serverless as well.
Thanks, Sean. Well, the good news is we're not in it alone, and neither are you. We have an incredibly robust collection of ecosystem partners who are here to help enable your journey. Whether that's a global system integrator like an Accenture or a Deloitte, whether that's a strategy firm looking to help you lead your digital transformation like a Slalom, or whether it's an organization that focuses on specific workloads like a Syntax, a Lemongrass, or a Proterra for those Oracle and SAP workloads. The partners that we have, we're proud of, we collaborate closely with, and we go through certification with them to make sure that they have the real skills necessary to enable your success by demonstrating project after project that they've already accomplished similar objectives for other clients. So we're very, very proud of that. We could not do it alone without our partners. We just don't have a model built and designed to lead all of these migrations. So we're grateful to all of these partners. We encourage you to find one or have us help you identify a partner who can help you with these kinds of transformations.
Definitely agree. Don't go it alone. Partners are here to help, and they're a great partner along the way. So as we get started, right, what are your next steps coming out of this session, ways that you can take action? The first is reach out to your AWS account team, right? That could be your account rep, your solution architect, could be the partner that you're working with today on your AWS project, and talk about what are these first couple workloads that you want to look at migrating. Do you have a data center? Do you have a colo that you want to migrate and clear out? Or from a modernization standpoint, what does your application estate look like today, and are there opportunities to take advantage of some of these modernization benefits that Everett and I have talked about? And spanning the whole ecosystem, right? I mean, there's all these different ISVs that we talked about, but really just in your environment in general, there's opportunities to do this. The second is you can schedule a workshop or an immersion day with your AWS team to actually dive deep and unpack those particular workloads, right? Those apps that you're running and saying, how would we do this? How have other customers done this in the past? How can AWS help with their experience and their capability, together with a partner or with the AWS team, with your solution architecture team? Sit down, whiteboard, right? Do a chalk talk and go through this and say, what are our opportunities here in the short and long term? And then finally, kick off this migration journey, right? Get a couple of these workloads going if you haven't already. If you started but you need help, right? You want to go faster, you've got a compelling event, or you just want to get to the cloud quicker, we're here to help. If you don't know who your AWS account rep is, you don't have one, or you just want to follow up, we've got an email address down here, movetocloud@amazon.com. Feel free to send us a note, and we will get you in touch with the right folks to help you. So as we wrap up here, a couple things, right? Just as you're here at the summit, these are learning events, right? They're here for our customers to be able to take advantage of and for you to be able to benefit from all these great speakers that we've got throughout the session. But also, there's great cloud skills available to you from a training standpoint, right? So we have our skill builder, which is 500 plus free digital courses that you can go enroll in to learn different AWS capabilities. You can go deeper on migration, you go deeper on Spot, the ability to use unused compute capacity. There's a course on that. It's localized in 16 different languages. It's all on demand. You can grab that QR code on your phone if you're interested. The second is certification, right? Like validating and proving out the knowledge that you've developed in these different AWS domains, whether it's at the associate level, the professional level, the specialty level. We've got a whole portfolio of different certifications there, including a newly launched SAP specialty certification, right? So you can grab that QR code, and there's a great AWS certified community here. If you're AWS certified, make sure to go get the sticker on your badge down by registration. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Here's our LinkedIn if you want to reach out and connect with us. Thank you so much for spending your morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.